During dinner, Grandpa asked about the car he sent me last year. But I never got it, and that one question exposed years of lies, betrayal, and a family secret I was never supposed to discover. During dinner, my grandfather looked across the table and asked me, "Did you like the car I gave you as a present last year?" I stared at him, completely confused, and told him the truth. I never received any car. That was the moment my parents froze. That was the moment the silence at our table became heavier than anything I had ever felt before. And that was the moment the truth finally came to light. My name is Jake. I was 23 years old when everything changed, and for as long as I can remember, I had always been the son nobody really wanted around. This was not one of those dramatic stories where a child is abandoned at a doorstep or beaten every night behind closed doors. In some ways, it was quieter than that, and because it was quieter, it took longer for anyone to see it. It was the story of a family that simply decided I did not matter enough. My parents, Sarah and Robert, never really hid who the favorite was. My sister, Madison, was 2 years younger than me, and from the time we were children, she was the princess of the house. She was the one who received the best toys at Christmas. She was the one who got brand-name clothes, while I was told my old shirts still had plenty of life left in them. She was the one who heard warm words of encouragement, even when her grades were average. And I was the one who could come home with a first-place certificate from the Math Olympics and receive nothing more than a flat, "That's nice, Jake. Just don't get cocky about it." I grew up surrounded by comparisons. "Look how affectionate Madison is," my mother would say whenever I tried to show affection in my own awkward way. "See how spontaneous and fun she is?" My father would add whenever I tried to tell a joke or share something interesting. It always felt like I was some poorly made draft of the child they had actually wanted. Madison was bright, loud, charming when she wanted something, and very good at playing the role they loved most. I was quieter. I worked hard. I paid attention. I did what I was told, but none of that seemed to count. When I finished high school with a 9.2 average and was accepted into 3 different universities, I thought maybe, just maybe, that would finally make them look at me with pride. It did not. My mother barely looked up from the television when I told her. "University is very expensive, Jake," she said, as if I had asked for something unreasonable. "Besides, Madison will need support when her time comes. She has a bright future ahead. A bright future." Those words stayed with me because nobody ever spoke about my future that way. At 18, while Madison received a new laptop so she could prepare for college entrance exams, I started working at an electronics store in the city mall. It was not my dream job. I had wanted more for myself. I had imagined classrooms, books, professors, maybe a degree that would open doors, but dreams did not pay rent, food, transportation, or the small expenses my parents always made me feel guilty for having. So I worked. I organized products on shelves, helped customers choose phones and speakers and headphones, carried boxes from the stockroom, answered endless questions, and sometimes made enough sales to earn a little extra commission. The work was tiring, especially on weekends when the mall was crowded and noisy. I would come home with aching feet, a sore back, and hands dried out from handling packaging all day. But there was dignity in it. I was building something on my own. I was surviving without depending on anyone who had already made it clear they did not want to help me. Meanwhile, Madison continued living like royalty. At 20, she had never worked a single day in her life. She spent afternoons at the gym, went out with friends for lunch at expensive restaurants, bought clothes whenever she wanted, and always seemed to have money for whatever new thing caught her attention. My parents justified everything. "She's preparing for the job market," my mother would say. "She's still too young to worry about these things," my father would add. Too young. I had been working since I was 18. What began to trouble me was the money. My father worked as an accountant at a small company, and my mother gave private English lessons a few times a week. They were not poor enough to starve, but they were not rich either. At least, that was what I had always believed. Their income did not seem enough to cover Madison's lifestyle. The new clothes, the salon appointments, the lunches, the expensive shoes, and the way my parents suddenly complained less and less about bills. The answer seemed to arrive when I was 19. My paternal grandfather, William, called me one day to talk. Grandpa William had always been different from my parents. When I was a child, he was the one who took me fishing at the river near his house. He taught me how to fix bicycles in his garage, how to tighten bolts, how to listen to the sound of a chain and know when something was wrong. He listened when I spoke about my dreams. He did not interrupt me or laugh at me. He made me feel like what I said mattered. "Jake, my boy," he told me during that call, his voice warm and familiar. "I'm moving to Portugal." I remember sitting there in silence for a moment. "Portugal?" "Yes," he said. "I got a good job opportunity there, and I think it will be good for me to start over." I was sad, but I understood. He had been widowed 2 years earlier, and I knew losing my grandmother had changed him. Maybe he really did need a new place, a new rhythm, a new reason to wake up every morning. "But don't worry," he continued. "I'll always take care of the family from there. Every month, I'll send money to help you all. I want you to be able to study, Jake. I want you to have the opportunities you deserve." Those words touched me deeply. After he moved, things at home visibly improved. My parents stopped complaining so much about bills. Madison started showing up in even more expensive clothes. The kitchen was renovated. There were new appliances, new decorations, new little luxuries that nobody explained. When I asked about Grandpa William's money, my mother said he sent an amount every month to help with general household expenses. I did not question it too much. I had my job. I could manage on my own. And a part of me had been trained not to ask for anything, because asking always made me feel like a burden. Still, sometimes I wondered. Grandpa had specifically mentioned my studies. He had said he wanted me to have opportunities, so why did none of that money ever seem to reach me? Contact with my grandfather became sporadic after he moved. He would call from time to time, always asking how I was, whether I was managing to study, whether I needed anything. I always said everything was fine. I told him I was working and managing on my own. I did not want to sound ungrateful. I did not want to create conflict. And deep down, I think I was still ashamed to admit how little support I had at home. He always sounded proud, but also worried. "You've always been a special boy, Jake," he would tell me. "You have a good heart and a determination that few people have. Don't let anyone make you feel like you're worth nothing." Those words carried me through days when I came home exhausted from work and heard my family make jokes about my mediocre job or comments about how I had no ambition. At least one person in the world believed in me. On my 23rd birthday, I came home from work and found a small cake on the kitchen table. To anyone else, it would have looked like almost nothing. It was one of those supermarket cakes with artificial frosting and cheap decorations. But it was there, and that alone surprised me. My parents and Madison sang happy birthday with the enthusiasm of people completing an unpleasant obligation. "It's from Grandpa William," my mother explained. "He asked us to organize something for you." I was touched. Even from far away, my grandfather had remembered me. It was more than my own family usually did. We ate the cake in silence. Nobody made speeches. Nobody asked what I wanted for the next year of my life. Nobody seemed especially happy I existed. After a few minutes, everyone went back to their normal activities. But in the weeks that followed, I noticed strange changes around the house. My parents started showing off even more. My mother appeared one day with a leather purse that cost more than my monthly salary. My father bought a watch I had seen in a mall window, the kind of watch I remembered because the price had seemed absurd. Madison became even more unbearable with her designer clothes, her expensive sneakers, and her casual way of acting as if all of it was normal. One day, I heard my mother on the phone talking about a trip. "It'll be just the three of us," she was saying. "A little getaway to relax at the beach. Everything is already booked. Just the three of us." When I found out about the trip, I was not invited. "There's no room for 4 people in the room," my father said, barely pretending to care. "And you have to work anyway, right?" They spent an entire week at a 5-star resort, posting photos on Instagram of expensive meals, colorful drinks, the ocean, the pool, and moments of happy family. Happy family. As long as I was not in the picture, I stayed home and worked my regular shifts. I washed my uniform, ate leftovers, and wondered where all that extra money was coming from. Could Grandpa William be sending more money? Had he gotten a better job in Portugal? Had he received an inheritance? I tried not to think about it too much, but curiosity kept eating at me. The year passed slowly. My routine stayed the same. Work, home, work, home. Sometimes I went out with colleagues for a beer after a shift, but most of the time my social life was limited. I did not have money for the activities my family enjoyed, and over time, I got used to loneliness. Madison continued without working, living her princess life. My parents continued treating me as if I were some unwanted burden, and I continued trying to prove I was worth something, even though nobody in that house seemed interested in noticing. When my 24th birthday approached, I expected nothing special. Maybe another cheap cake. Maybe not even that. Then, 3 days before the date, my phone rang. "Jake, my boy, how are you?" It was Grandpa William's warm voice, and I had not heard it in months. "Grandpa," I said, unable to hide my surprise. "What a surprise. I'm well, working hard." "Great, great. Listen, I have news for you. I'm returning to Brazil next week. I want to be there for your birthday." My heart raced. I had not seen my grandfather in 3 years, and now he was coming back especially for me. "We'll have dinner at the best restaurant in town," he continued. "Invite your parents and Madison. It'll be a family celebration." I hung up the phone with a smile I had not felt on my face in a long time. Finally, someone who really cared about me would be there. I could barely wait to see Grandpa William again. When I told my family about his visit, their reaction was strange. My parents exchanged nervous glances. Madison, who almost always had something sarcastic to say, became quieter than usual. "That's good," my mother said, but her voice sounded forced. "It'll be good to see Grandpa William again." I did not understand why they seemed uncomfortable. After all, Grandpa William was the person funding the lifestyle they enjoyed. Shouldn't they be excited to see him? But I did not think too much about it. I was too busy imagining what it would feel like to reunite with the only person who had always believed in me. The day finally arrived. Grandpa William appeared at the front door in the middle of the afternoon, with the wide smile I remembered from childhood. He was thinner than before, his hair grayer, but he still carried the same contagious energy. "My boy," he said, wrapping me in a tight hug. "Look at you. You've grown into a man." For a moment, I could not speak. I felt an emotion I had not experienced in years. Here was someone genuinely happy to see me. Someone who hugged me like I was important, like I belonged. My parents greeted him with forced smiles, and Madison barely looked up from her phone. "Come on, family," Grandpa said, clapping his hands together. Today is a day of celebration. I reserved a table at Terrasso di Valle. My eyes widened. Terrasso di Valle was the fanciest restaurant in town, the kind of place where a single dish cost more than I earned in a full day of work. During the ride to the restaurant, Grandpa would not stop asking me questions. He wanted to know how work was going, whether I was happy, what plans I had for the future, what I dreamed about now. It was the first time in years that someone showed real interest in my life. "I'm very proud of you, Jake," he said, putting a hand on my shoulder. "Working hard since you were 18, supporting yourself. That shows character." From the back seat, Madison muttered, "Working at the mall isn't exactly impressive." My father chuckled under his breath. My mother sighed as if she were annoyed that the conversation had turned in my favor. The restaurant was even more elegant than I had imagined. Waiters in impeccable uniforms moved quietly between tables, covered with linen tablecloths. Crystal glasses sparkled under soft candlelight. Everything smelled expensive. Everything looked polished and intentional. I felt out of place in my simple shirt and jeans, but Grandpa noticed and leaned toward me. "You look perfect, my boy," he said. "True elegance comes from within." Dinner felt surreal. The food was incredible, each dish arranged like a work of art. Grandpa ordered expensive wine and made sure to include me in every toast. For the first time in my life, I felt truly celebrated, but my family was acting strangely. My parents spoke very little. They always seemed nervous whenever Grandpa asked me a question. Madison stayed on her phone most of the time, visibly bored, and whenever one of them did speak, they somehow found a way to make a derogatory comment about me. "Another year at the mall, right, Jake?" Madison said at one point, her voice full of that familiar superiority. "When are you going to get a real job?" My mother laughed softly. "Yes," she said. "At your age, you should have more ambition." I felt my face heat with anger and shame, but before I could say anything, Grandpa stepped in. "Ambition," he said, his tone suddenly firm. "This boy has been working since he was 18. While others his age spend their parents' money, he is building his independence. That is much more than ambition. That is dignity." The awkwardness at the table became impossible to ignore. My parents lowered their eyes. Madison finally put her phone away. Then, dessert arrived. A beautiful tiramisu that probably cost more than I spent on lunch in an entire week. That was when Grandpa looked at me with a loving smile and asked the question that changed everything. By the way, Jake, tell me, how was the gift I sent you last year? I blinked at him. The gift? Yes, he said. Your birthday gift. Did you like it? I thought about the cheap supermarket cake my parents had bought. Oh, I said, smiling uncertainly. Yes. Thank you for the cake, Grandpa. It was very thoughtful of you. His smile disappeared. He frowned as if something in the conversation had suddenly stopped making sense. Cake? He asked. What cake? The cake you asked them to buy for my birthday, I explained, and a cold feeling began to open in my stomach. Grandpa slowly turned his eyes toward my parents. Jake, he said, still looking at them. I did not ask anyone to buy you a cake. My mother moved quickly, too quickly. Dad, maybe there was a misunderstanding. No, Grandpa said, raising one hand. No misunderstanding. Then he looked directly at me. Jake, didn't you receive the car I sent you? The world seemed to stop. Car? I whispered. What car? The red Civic, he said. The one I bought and had delivered to your house on your birthday. A brand new car, with all the documents in your name. For a second, I felt as if the floor had disappeared under my feet. I didn't receive any car, Grandpa, I said. Just the cake. The silence at our table became deafening. My parents went pale. Madison looked like she had stopped breathing. Grandpa looked at each of them, and I watched his expression change from confusion into a cold fury I had never seen on his face before. Where, he said, pronouncing each word with dangerous calm, is the car I bought for my grandson? My parents began stammering. My mother said something about delivery problems. My father tried to blame the transport company. Their excuses came out broken and weak. But Grandpa William was not stupid. He had built a company from scratch. He knew when people were lying to him. I want the truth, he said, slamming his hand on the table so hard the glasses trembled. Now, the entire restaurant was looking at us. Other customers whispered among themselves and discreetly pointed toward our table, but I did not care. I was in total shock. A car. My grandfather had given me a car. A brand new car in my name, and I had never even known it existed. It was my mother who finally broke. With a trembling voice, she confessed. We sold the car. Sold? I shouted before I could stop myself. You sold my car? We needed the money, my father said, trying to sound reasonable. Things were difficult, and Madison was needing. Madison was needing what? I exploded. More designer clothes? More expensive sneakers? More resorts? Grandpa looked absolutely livid. You took the gift I bought specifically for Jake, he said, his voice cutting through the room. And you sold it to pay for Madison's luxuries? It wasn't just for Madison. My mother tried to defend herself. It was for the whole family. We took that trip, bought things we needed. Lies, I snapped. I didn't go on the trip. I never saw a cent of that money. You spent it all on yourselves. Grandpa stood up from his chair. 32,000 reais, he said. That is what the car was worth. 32,000 reais that I saved while working in Portugal so I could give a decent gift to my grandson. And you sold it for frivolities. The amount shocked me even more. 32,000 reais. More than I earned in 2 years working at the mall. And they had sold it as if it were nothing. Dad, please, let me explain, my mother said. But Grandpa did not want to hear it. There is no explanation, he said. You betrayed my trust. You stole from my grandson. And I am sure this was not the first time. He turned to me, and the fury in his face softened into deep sadness. Jake, my boy, I need to tell you something. My heart stopped. What do you mean? That car was not the only gift I sent you. I could barely breathe. For the last 3 years, he continued, every month, I sent money specifically for you. For your studies, for your needs, so you could have opportunities. I transferred it to your parents, because I trusted them to pass it on to you. But now I understand you never saw any of it. I looked at my parents with a mixture of horror and rage. How much? I asked, my voice low. 3 years, Grandpa replied. 600 reais a month, plus household expenses. Money that was rightfully yours. I did the math quickly in my head. 600 reais a month for 3 years. More than 20,000 reais. Added to the 32,000 from the car, they had stolen more than 50,000 reais from me. I looked at my parents, and for the first time, I saw them clearly. You're thieves, I said, with a coldness that surprised even me. Thieves from your own family. Madison finally found her voice. Jake, don't be dramatic. That money helped the whole family. It helped you. I corrected her. It helped pay for your clothes, your sneakers, your outings. I never saw a cent. I worked like a slave while you lived like royalty with money that was mine. Grandpa put his hand on my shoulder. Jake, he said, you are not staying one more day in that house. Come with me to Portugal. There, you will have the opportunities you deserve. I did not think twice. When? Now. Today, we will get your things and go to the airport. My parents panicked. Dad, you can't be serious, my mother said. He is our son. Son? Grandpa laughed bitterly. You treated this boy like a stranger his entire life. You humiliated him, robbed him, despised him, and now you want to talk about him being your son? Then he turned to me. The decision is yours, Jake. You can stay here and continue being treated like garbage, or you can come with me and have the life you always deserved. I looked at my family. My parents were desperate, but not because they loved me. They were afraid of losing the money Grandpa sent. Madison looked stunned, as if she was finally realizing her princess life might be coming to an end. I'm going, I said, standing up from the table. I have nothing left here. Grandpa smiled for the first time since the truth had been revealed. Then let's go, my boy. Your new life starts now. We left the restaurant, leaving my family sitting at the table with the bill to pay. As I walked out beside my grandfather, I felt a kind of relief I had not experienced in years. Finally, someone had seen the truth. Finally, someone had called them what they were. Finally, I had a chance to be valued. Grandpa, I said as we walked to the car, thank you for believing in me. I always believed in you, he replied. And now you are going to see what it feels like to have a real family. The trip to Portugal felt like a dream. Grandpa had bought first-class tickets, and for the first time in my life, I felt truly cared for. During the flight, he told me about the life waiting for me. I have a consulting company in Lisbon, he explained. I started small, but it has grown a lot in recent years. You are going to work with me. You will learn the business. You have talent for this, Jake. You always did. When we arrived in Lisbon, I was stunned by his house. It was a mansion in an upscale neighborhood with impeccable gardens and a beautiful view of the city. Everything about it felt unreal to me. But what caught my attention most was the garage. Grandpa opened it and pointed to a row of sports cars. Choose one, he said. The one that should have been yours is gone. But any of these can be yours now. There was a metallic blue BMW, a gleaming black Audi, and in the corner, a red Porsche that left me breathless. That one, I said, pointing to the Porsche. Good choice, Grandpa laughed. You have good taste. In the first days, I could barely believe the change. I had a room larger than my parents' living room. I had a closet full of clothes Grandpa had ordered for me. But more important than the house, the clothes, or the car, I had respect. Grandpa consulted me about company decisions. He valued my opinions. He treated me as an equal, not as a burden. The work at the consulting firm was challenging, but it was rewarding in a way I had never known before. I dealt with important clients, made complex analyses, prepared reports, studied markets, and realized that I was finally using the potential everyone back home had ignored. My salary was 10 times higher than what I earned at the mall. For the first time in my life, I had money to do what I wanted. But money was not the most important part. The most important part was belonging. Grandpa introduced me to friends and business partners as my grandson, the future of the company. He said it with pride. He said it in front of people. He wanted them to know I mattered to him. And that changed something inside me. During those first months, my phone rang constantly. Calls from Brazil. My parents. Madison. I ignored all of them. I had nothing to say to them. They had robbed me, humiliated me, treated me like trash for years. Now that they no longer had Grandpa's money, they wanted to talk. Grandpa told me he had cut off all financial support the day after we left. They made their bed, he said. Now let them sleep in it. 6 months later, curiosity finally won. One night, after a particularly good day at work, I decided to answer one of the calls. It was my mother. Jake, thank God, she said. Are you okay? We were worried. I almost laughed. Worried. What do you want? We want to talk, son. You're our family. We miss you here. Family? I repeated, and the word tasted poisonous. Where was that family when I needed it? Where was it when you sold my car to pay for Madison's princess life? Jake, please, let me explain. We're going through difficulties. Without your grandfather's money, things became very hard. They're going to evict us next week. This time, I really did laugh. And what does that have to do with me? You're our son. You have an obligation to help us. Obligation? I said. What obligation do I have to you? You treated me like trash my whole life. Now you want me to be the good son who helps the family? I heard her begin to cry. Please, Jake. We know we made mistakes, but we're your family. You can't leave us on the street. You left me on the street emotionally my whole life, I replied. Now experience what it feels like literally. Then my father took the phone. Jake, stop this ingratitude. After everything we did for you. Everything you did for me? I exploded. You stole more than 50,000 reais from me. You sold my car. You humiliated me. You treated me like I was a burden. And now, you want to talk about ingratitude? We raised you, he said. We gave you a house and food. You gave me the minimum required, while giving the maximum to Madison. Do not come asking me for gratitude now. Then I heard a third voice. Madison. Jake, you're being dramatic. It wasn't that bad. It wasn't that bad, I almost shouted. You spent money that was mine on designer clothes for yourself. You traveled and left me behind. You mocked me every day. But now you have a good life, she said. You don't need to be resentful. I have a good life despite you, not because of you. And you know what else? I am happy knowing you are miserable. Finally, you are paying for what you did. My mother came back to the phone, sobbing. Please, Jake, we're your family. You can't abandon us like this. You abandoned me first, I said. The difference is that now I have a choice, and I choose to have nothing to do with you. But we're your parents. Real parents do not do what you did. Real parents do not steal from their children. Real parents do not humiliate one child to elevate another. There was a long silence. Then my mother said, What if we ask for forgiveness? Forgiveness does not bring back the years of humiliation. Forgiveness does not bring back the money you stole. Forgiveness does not erase the pain you caused. So you're going to leave us on the street? I am not the one leaving you on the street. Your choices led you there. You could have used Grandpa's money responsibly. You could have included me in the family. You could have treated me with respect. But you chose to humiliate and steal. Now deal with the consequences. My father tried one last card. And Madison? She is not to blame for all of this. Not to blame? I laughed with contempt. She participated in every humiliation. She laughed at me, called me a failure, and enjoyed every cent of the money that belonged to me. She is as guilty as you are. But she is your sister. A sister is someone who stands by your side. Someone who supports you. Madison was never my sister. She was just a stranger who shared the same house. I heard Madison scream in the background. I always hated you anyway. You were always a burden on this family. Perfect, I said calmly. Finally, the truth. Thank you for confirming everything I always knew. My mother came back to the phone, desperate. Jake, please. At least give us a chance to redeem ourselves. You had 23 years of chances. You wasted them all. But now it's different. We understand our mistakes. You only understood when the money ran out. If Grandpa were still sending money, you would not have called me at all. There was another silence. I had hit the truth, and they all knew it. You know what makes me angriest? I continued. It is not even the money. It is the fact that you never really loved me. I was just an inconvenience you tolerated. And now, when you need something, you want to pretend I am your son. We do love you, my mother said weakly. No. You love the idea of what I can do for you now. That is different. I hung up the phone and put it on silent. I did not want to hear any more of their pathetic pleas. Grandpa, who had heard part of the conversation, placed his hand on my shoulder. How do you feel? He asked. Free, I replied. And it was true. For the first time in my life, I felt truly free. In the following weeks, Grandpa told me what was happening in Brazil. My family had been evicted and was living in a tiny apartment in a dangerous neighborhood. My father had gotten a factory job, earning minimum wage. My mother was cleaning houses to supplement their income. And Madison, who had never worked a day in her life, had been forced to accept a job at a coffee shop. They are paying for years of arrogance, Grandpa said. They always thought they were better than everyone else. They believed they deserved luxury without working for it. I felt a deep satisfaction knowing they were finally facing reality. It was not revenge. It was justice. My new life in Portugal prospered more each day. Grandpa taught me everything about the business, and I discovered I had a natural talent for it. Within a year, I was already managing important accounts and contributing significantly to the company's success. I met incredible people. I made true friends. And eventually, I started dating a colleague from the company named Sophia. Sophia treated me with a kind of respect and affection I had never experienced before. She listened when I spoke. She cared about my thoughts. She did not make me feel small. "You are a special person, Jake," she would tell me. "You have an inner strength that is admirable." Sometimes I told her about my childhood, about the way my family had treated me, about how normal it had all felt, until I finally escaped it. She was horrified. "How can parents treat a child like that?" she asked once. "It's incomprehensible." "Because they never saw me as a real son," I explained. "I was just an accident they tolerated." 2 years after I left Brazil, my phone rang again. It was a number I did not recognize, but when I answered, I heard my mother's voice. "Jake, it's me. Please don't hang up." "How did you get this number?" I asked. "I asked an investigator to find you." "Jake, please. I need to tell you something important." Against my better judgment, I listened. "Madison is sick," she said. "Cancer. She needs treatment, but we don't have money. She could die." I felt a knot tighten in my chest. But it was not pity. It was anger. "And what does that have to do with me?" "She is your sister. Even with all the problems, she is family." "No," I said. "She is not. She chose not to be, when she spent years humiliating me." "Jake, please, she is sorry. She wants to talk to you." "I'm not interested." "How can you be so cold? This is a matter of life and death. She had a whole lifetime to treat me like a brother. She chose not to. Now, in her hour of need, she wants me to forget everything? But she's family. Family is someone who stays by your side in good times and bad. Family is someone who supports you, loves you, and respects you. You were never my family. You were just people who shared the same house with me." I heard sobbing on the other side of the line. "Jake, I know we made mistakes. We all made mistakes. But please don't let your sister die." "She is not my sister," I repeated. "And even if she were, you taught me that family does not help family. After all, when I needed help, where were you?" I hung up the phone and never answered calls from Brazil again. 3 years passed. My life in Portugal became everything I had once been denied. I married Sophia. We bought a beautiful house in the center of Lisbon. I became a partner in Grandpa's company. We were rich, respected, and happy. On a quiet Sunday, Grandpa called me to talk. "Jake," he said, "I have something to tell you." My stomach tightened. "What happened?" "I received a call from Brazil yesterday. Madison died last week. Cancer." I waited for something to move inside me. Sadness. Relief. Guilt. Anything. But all I felt was a neutral emptiness. "How are they?" I asked. "Destroyed," Grandpa said. "Your father had a heart attack after the funeral and is in the hospital. Your mother is alone with no money for anything." I stayed silent for a long time. "Do you feel anything?" Grandpa asked gently. "No," I answered honestly. "Should I?" "There is no right or wrong here, Jake. They made their choices. You made yours. They could have had a good life if they had treated me like family," I said. "They could have used the money you sent wisely. They could have created a home with love in it. But they chose humiliation and favoritism." Grandpa nodded. "And now they are paying the price." "I do not feel sorry," I said. "I feel that justice was finally done." That night, I told Sophia everything. She held me tightly. "You did the right thing," she said. "Family is not who shares DNA with you. Family is who loves you, respects you, and stands by your side. Your grandfather is your family. I am your family." She was right. I looked around at my life. My beautiful house. My wonderful wife. My grandfather, who loved me unconditionally. The company where I was respected. The friends who valued me. And I realized I had found my true family. Not the people who shared blood with me, but the people who believed in me, protected me, respected me, and chose me. My mother tried to contact me a few more times over the years. There was always some new tragedy. Always some new desperate request. Always a demand dressed up as family. I never responded. I had closed that chapter of my life forever. Today, at 28, I am a fulfilled man. I have a prosperous company, a family that loves me, true friends, and a life built on respect instead of fear. I learned that sometimes, to find happiness, You need the courage to leave toxic people behind, even when they share your blood. Grandpa William saved me, not just financially, but emotionally. He showed me what it felt like to be truly loved. He showed me what it felt like to have someone be proud of me. He showed me what it felt like to be part of a real family. And, as for my biological family, they reaped exactly what they sowed. For years, they sowed contempt, humiliation, selfishness, and theft. So it was only natural that they eventually reaped loneliness, poverty, regret, and loss. I feel no remorse. I feel gratitude. Gratitude that I had the strength to leave that toxic situation behind. Gratitude that I found people who loved me without conditions. Gratitude that I learned the difference between blood and family before it was too late. Sometimes the best thing you can do for yourself is have the courage to abandon those who do not deserve you, even if they are the people who raised you. Because true family is not obligation. True family is choice. And I chose well.